anymore. Don't listen. I've learned what not to do in the sight of my daddy. And if I can learn that, how to act and conduct myself here physically, I ought to learn how to act and conduct myself spiritually. Amen? I'm learning some things along this journey. I'm 48 years old. I've been saved since I was 15, and I still am learning stuff along this journey. However old you are, the years you've been going on it, you're learning stuff along this journey. And you're also learning how to conduct yourself in the front of God. Amen?
Amen.
And we ought to be anyway. We don't want to be cast off. We don't want to be scattered. We don't want to be displeased. We want His vision and favor upon us. Amen? How do we get that? We beg of Him. We plead to Him to look down on us and that we would learn of that. Not only do we see that, but James, let's go to number 2. I not only see a reverent plea, but I also see sometimes we need to remind Him of His promises. Now, you can do this to a good and to a bad extent. I can tell you that there was times that I went before my mom and dad, and I said, well, I remembered when you said this. Well, that always didn't work at mom and dad.
That's right.
I remember, I can tell you a lot of stories, but there's one I'm going to tell you. It didn't go away until the next day. We had what we called a bully teacher. His name was Mr. Kiewit, an old Army guy. And he had a middle finger, was like the size of a cucumber, and he would do this to you in your chest when he's talking to you. Big, huge hand, and he'd just do this to you. Well, Mama told us a long time ago, don't you let anybody hit you at school. All right? So, of course, I know it's hard for you to believe, but Jerry got in trouble. Jerry got pulled out of class, was in the hallway. I know it's a miracle, shock to all, I know. Had the little latches on the lockers out in the hallway. Mr. Kiewit backed up into that thing and was giving me this finger to the chest thing. And the whole time my back's going in that latch. After 3 or 4 of those, I had enough of that. And I reached up and said, how do you like it, Mr. Kiewit? I didn't go over too well. Next thing you know, my arm was grabbed down to the Mr. Principal's office. We went, and Daddy got called at work. 7 kids at home. Daddy couldn't afford to have a day off of work to come down and get Jerry out of school. Jerry was expelled that day. Not suspended, but expelled that day. And I had to sit there and wait for my dad to come home. My dad walks in. He said, I'm going to talk to my son first. Take me out in the hallway what happened. I told him what happened. Reality of it was I was cutting up. I had to get taken out. Yes. Well, my dad went into Mr. Kiewit. 2 men about 6'8" together standing. And my dad looked at him and said, you ever touch my son again, and you'll deal with me next time. Amen. Well, I felt good about that. All right, no whipping, no nothing coming my way. That's what I thought. I go home, and Mom's home now, and Dad set me down on the couch. He said, you sit right there, we'll talk to your mama for a minute, and we're going to find out what we're going to do with you. Both of them are working. Jerry's expelled, meaning somebody's got to take off work to be home with Jerry. There's a big problem here. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm waiting, I think I'm in the clear, everything's going well. You ever felt like that before God? You never felt the wrath of God? You thought you got away with something? 2-3 days later, bang, it happens. God's not going to wink at our wrongs. Amen.
Amen.
Here's what happens. I'm sitting there on the couch feeling good about myself, literally just like this. Dad walks over, 6'8", grabs me with one hand across both my arms, picks me up, holds me right in his face, and he said, son, what do you got to say for yourself? And I looked right over at Mom, and I said, Mom said, don't let anybody hit you at school, and that's why I hit Mr. Kiewit back. Mom said, I never said that. So why Dad had me up here in the air, this hand was down here, bang, 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 what happened in there? The next day, here's what I want you to see now. I did deserve to get disciplined. Jerry was cutting up in school. Discipline is right in the sight of God. Amen.
Amen.
I'm talking with saints. You're going to get in trouble. You do wrong. Amen. You're going to feel the repercussions.
Yeah, right. Amen.
But here's where grace came in. The next day, I come around the corner. My bedroom's upstairs. I come around the corner downstairs. I walk into the kitchen. There's my mom standing at the kitchen counter, having a cup of coffee, and had her head hung low. I come around the corner. I said, good morning, Mama. And she looked at me with tears in her eyes. She said, son, I'm sorry that you were disciplined yesterday. I do remember that I said that. And when your daddy gets home, I will straighten this out then. That's where grace comes in. What did she do? She didn't stand there at the counter and just, get over all that. She ran to me. She comforted me. She apologized and loved on me. But did Jerry need to get in trouble? Absolutely. Did Jerry need to get disciplined? Absolutely. But grace came in after all that had happened. When God disciplines you and you do wrong, He's not just going to beat you out in the field, leave you there. He's going to still love on you. He's going to bring you in and teach you and learn you some things from there. Here's point number 2. Remind Him of His promises. He's never going to leave you nor forsake you, even though He's going to discipline you. And what's happening here in verse number 1? These people were acting ungodly, and God's discipline came to them, and they begged for God to say, please give me some grace. Jerry didn't have a word to say. Daddy wore me out, and he said, you get up to your bedroom, I don't want to see you right now. Up to my bedroom I went. Grace came in the next day. Dad come home, Mom told Dad what happened, and Dad, the same way Mama did, came to me with tears in his eyes, said, son, I'm sorry. And I think my Heavenly Father acting the same way sometimes. We're so bad and evil and wrong, and we want to remind Him of all He's supposed to be doing for us, but in the meantime, some of us act so ungodly we need discipline. God still yet loves on us and says, I'm sorry I had to whip you, but I'm here to love on you too. Amen? I want a good God. Look at what He does here. You promised these victories I put on the board. You promised victory or victories I put in there to your people. He's not going to leave us, church. He's not going to leave us. If the battle seems hard, it seems just like there's no victory in sight. You can't see the top of the hill. You can't get over it. It's just dark all the time, but there is victory awaiting to you. Just remind Him of His promises. 1 Kings 8:56. You're not reminding Him because you didn't do wrong. You're reminding Him because of His mercy. The only reason why I'm just telling you the truth, I said, Mama told me that, is to get me out of getting a whipping. That's all that was. I would have never used that line if I would have thought I would have knocked out the whipping. I said that with boldness, thinking that was going to save my hide that day. My friends, it did not. Jerry still needed discipline, whether or not it was Mom said this or that. He cut up, he acted up, and he received the repercussions. But I was reminded of the promise. God still loves me. You know, this week I've stumbled and fallen. You know, this week you have stumbled and fallen. You might have done it today, this afternoon. And you probably deserve to be disciplined. I know I have deserved to be disciplined too. But after discipline comes the grace and love and promises of God. He didn't just whip us and leave us alone. He still yet loves us and cares and shows us grace. His promises. 1 Kings 8:56, there hath not failed one word of all His good promise, which He promised by the hand of Moses, His servant. What a great God. All the promises that Moses stood there and told all these same children of Israel that David is speaking on behalf of, he is reminding them of His promises. Here's what I'd like for you to do in the promises. Tomorrow looks rough. Tonight looks rough. You don't know what the next few days or weeks are going to hold for you, some things and situations you've got to do. I'd love for you to memorize this verse in Kings 8:56. That God's promises have not failed. He will be just as good to you today as He will be tomorrow when those problems come and the days and weeks to come. Just remind yourself and remind Him that God, I'm holding and believing in your promises. Number 3, James. Number 3. I hope that helps you. That helped me right away. I didn't know I was going to tell you all that about myself, but there we are. Number 3. I want you to see not only reverently remind Him of His promises, but I want you to see the request of His protection. The request of His protection. That comes from verses 9 through 11. Let's read verse 9 through 11. Who will bring me into this strong city? Who will lead me into Edom? Will not thou, O God, which hast cast us off, and thou, O God, which didst not go out with our armies? Give us help from trouble. And for what? For vain is the help of man. I want you to see what he's talking about, the request of protection. To finish that story, my dad was gracious enough to go back down to see the principal and got me put back into school. I was suspended for 1 week, meaning that my mom had to take a week off of work. big financial blow to a family of 9 back in the 80s. So when that happened, there was not only grace extended to me at home, but there was grace given to me at school. Although I never went back to Mr. Kiewit's class, I was put in another class, but there was still grace handed down to me. Here's what I want you to see about this. Our request of his protection. In verses 9 through 11, we got to go back to school, and as we walk back to school, we say these words. Who, letter A, who but God can protect me? He's asking, David is saying, God, we need not only you to move and deliver us individually, but we also need you, God, to protect us against our armies. Look in the last part of verse 10. God, which didst not go out with our armies. He didn't leave. He hasn't fled. He hasn't gone out with them and left us to dry, high and dry. He's still here with us. And David is asking God, these people that I'm here talking to you about, we need your protection. And he's asking, who else are we going to get? Who else is going to go for us? Who else is going to walk in front of us? Who's going to do this work? David is clear to tell us in letter A, who but God can protect us in verse 9. Who but God can lead us in verse 9. And who but God can give us the help that we need? And I encourage you to tell you, God is everything you ever need. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I'm glad to know that He and His protection are all sufficient. That's what I want to share with you. Number 3. I want to spend a minute on number 4, James. Let's go there. I hope you wrote that down. If not, $2.99 down my notes. Amen. Reverent plea. Remind Him of His promises. Request for His protection. But also I want you to see, I want you to be rehearsal of His personal help. I think back to times when God simply has intervened in my life. I think back to times right here what I believe David is doing here in verse 11 and 12. I believe he's just rehearsing some times where God has been with him. If you don't believe me, he's standing before the giant. And he looks at this giant as just another stepping stone to get over. He says to him, you're no different than that bear. And you're no different than that lion. And by the way, you're no different than anything else I'm going to face because I know whom I serve.
Yes. Yes.
He didn't come to him and he didn't say, I, David, am the mighty man of valor. I, David, am this. The Lord had delivered the lion and the bear, and this day He will deliver you into my hand.
That's right.
That's what He said to him. If he'd have walked out in his own power, his own might, he would have lost just like every other man who went out in the battle at that time, and they all died at the foot of the giant Goliath. And David went out not in the power and might of man, but in the power and might of God. And because of that, great victory came. Here's what I want you to see now. Rehearse of His personal help. Can you remember when God showed up on your scene? When there seemed absolutely no possible way to get out of it. No way to get through it. God showed up.
Amen.
When there seemed no hope, no help within, you couldn't do anything to help yourself, but God showed up.
Amen.
I can tell you a story, I don't know if I ever have. Ron and I took a trip down to her mama's in Nashville. I'm driving this older Ford back in the day, and we had just a little bit of money. We just decided, Ron's mom moved away. She wanted to see her mama. Friday night, bang, we're in the car, gone. Halfway down there, I can hear my brakes start to grind and go out. I knew I had enough money to get there. I was eating at my mother-in-law's table. Everything was going to be fine. As far as food and preparation, I'm staying at the house, but I needed money to get home with, all that stuff. We had a $100 bill in our pocket. We went to every auto parts store. Nobody had the parts, everything. And we called everybody we could. And then we went to pray that night before we went to bed. Rhonda's sitting right here. She can testify to the story. We had one $100 bill to do us for 4 or 5 days. We got up the next morning. I'm holding my wallet, and I said, man, I don't know what we're going to do. This is long before cell phones and calling anybody. Man, probably go to Western Union, some money from mom and dad. I said, but something's got to happen here. I grabbed my wallet, and we looked in through there. And would you know, that very next morning, there was $200 in that wallet. You can tell me all you want. I miscounted. I never saw it. I know what I took. I know what I had. And I know what I prayed about before I went to bed.
Amen.
And I know what I had when I woke up the next morning.
Yes.
Here we are in the bedroom that the mama-in-law gave to us that night. I'm telling you, I was about to shout that place down Because God, in the middle of the night, answered a prayer. You can say you're crazy, it didn't happen. It really don't matter what you think about it. I'm telling you, this is what happened in the story. I'm first-hand knowledge of it. God answered. That's just one place God intervened. I'm not always saying it's going to be monetarily the way God answers you, but He's going to answer. I believe He answers in three ways. Yes, no, and my grace is sufficient. That's how I believe He answers. Yes to your question, no to your question, and you'll be all right whether you get a yes or a no. Grace is sufficient. I just believe it. So when we need to rehearse how God has personally helped us, He showed up in time and time again. And when we see the latter part of this chapter, verse 11 and 12, He said, give us help from trouble. And He said, for vain is the help of man. God, what we can do to one another will never amount to what you can do for us. He is telling us in letter 8, man's help is full of vanity. Look at what vanity is. Self-absorbed, self-centered, self-loving, and narcissistic. Why is that? Why is David emphasizing this point? It's just like that little woodpecker I told you about a couple weeks ago. Pecking on that tree, storm comes in, lightning starts crashing, 3 or 4 woodpeckers on the same tree. 4 of them leave, there's 1 left behind. Lightning hits that very same tree. Storms pass, that same woodpecker just winnowing around right where that tree was. Those other ones come flying up to him and say, hey, what happened over here? He said, see what I did? Split that tree in half. That's narcissistic. That's self-loving. That's all those things here. Vanity of a man, this is vain. Man is self-absorbed, self-centered, self-loving, and narcissistic. Because if you would have delivered the people of Israel, even David would say, God, if I would have done this, they would have sang another song about me. They would have sang another song about me. They would have sang another song about me. But God, I don't want to come here and have them sing about me. I want them to sing about you. Don't allow us to get out in the vanity of man, but just move in the power of God. Amen? That's what He's saying here. Look at this verse. This is fantastic. Give us help from trouble. For vain is the help of man. But look at verse 12. Through God we shall do valiantly. How are you going to win? Through God. Through God. Let it be. Let's look at this now. Not only do we rehearse the personal help of man every time we got involved in messing up anyway, letter B, I want you to see help is divine. What are they? What are the qualities? Of man, it's self-absorbed, self-centered, self-loving, and narcissistic. But of God, divinely, it's godly and heavenly. What does that mean for you and I? When there seemed no way, it's God. When there seemed no provision that I could ever get here on earth, heavenly. When it seemed no way out, God. When I didn't have another $100 in my wallet, heavenly. When everything looked bleak, God. When I didn't know where my next meal was coming from, heavenly. That's how it works. And David is saying, God, please help us not to be vain thinking about ourselves, but to be thinking about you and your divine power and will. That's what I want you to see tonight. God has not cast us off. We are still His. Sometimes we're out of the will of Him, but we're still His. Sometimes we need to be taken to the whipping shed, but we're still His. After all that is ended, He still loves you, He still cares about you, and He wants nothing but divine goodness for you. But my friends, we got to be like David. Dear God, please look down on us. Even though we're scattered, even though we're bad, even though we're this, even though we're that, dear God, help me. As Mike comes to sing for you, I don't know what your issues are. I don't know why the messages were flip-flopped from this morning to tonight. I don't know any of that, but here they are. Where does this find you? How does this fit you? I don't know, but whatever it does for you, you take full advantage of the time that's given to you and come to the altar, seek God, pray to God, say, God, it's me. I need your divine help. I don't want to be vain. I don't want this. I need you. Why they begin to sing? Why you stand? Don't wait for somebody else to move. If this earth helps you or even hurts you, come see Jesus tonight.
Page 368, bottom of the page.